Jerome JT62 back on the MakerFarm Pegasus 12. In this video we're going to look at LCD installation. I'll probably end up machining a cover for the front face, end stops, and hot end. This sounds something like you're interested in? Stay tuned. This is part 6 of the MakerFarm Pegasus 12 build. In this section we're going to cover the LCD. I noticed a little discrepancy in the instructions, and when I looked a little closer I understood why, but it tells you to install 4 spacers, and then it also tells you to install 2 more spacers in between the top screw holes of the LCD. You're not going to do that. That is for the smaller screen. In this one you get the deluxe screen, so don't try to pull that screen apart or you'll be buying another one. So disregard the 2 spacers up top. The only thing you're going to use are the 4 spacers that hold the board up from the mount itself. The 4 M3 25 millimeter and 4 lock nuts. So we'll go ahead and get this together. I'll probably go ahead and see if I can't come up with something and machine a face for this. I got to see what it looks like all put together, and then I'll come back and show you what it all looks like. So here's what the LCD looks like installed. There's a discrepancy in the instructions, and I went back and double checked, and it said to put that T-nut in the outside slot for this frame. It should be in the other slot, which is the inboard slot. It needs to line up with that hole right there, and then the other 2 that are correct, they're just offset like this. So that's a dilemma. Well, it could be for some people. For me, it's not going to be, because if you remember earlier on, we talked about drop-in and roll-in T-nuts. And that's what I'm going to have to use, because in order for me to change out, if I didn't have any more, or even if I did, to get it over in that slot, I would have to disassemble this whole machine, the whole top, take it out of square, and go back through. I'd have to pull the lead screws, the top off, basically go back to square one, and that is not going to happen. So at some point I may end up using that T-nut that's going to stay in there, just living in there. If I ever disassemble this, then I'll take it out. Kind of bugs me it's there, but you know, it is what it is. So I highly suggest that if you build a machine like this, whether it's MakerFarm or anybody else, and you happen to put T-nuts in the wrong slot to have the drop-in, or the roll-in, there's drop-in and there's roll-in. The roll-in have the bearings so they stay put. Again, they're not that expensive, but if I had to pull this apart, it would be real expensive, because that's all of my time. It would take hours to do that, and re-squaring, and I don't even want to think about it. So, I'm not particularly happy. I decided not to. I may do a face, may not at some point. I think I want to move this because there's just not enough room. This has to come up here. The ramps is mounted on the back side with the power supply, or this is going to be dangling on the inside like that. And I don't like that, so I'll probably just get this together for now, at least this portion. And, you know, I've looked on Thingiverse and there's other options. Print something up, but I have to move that. I don't think I'm going to put the power supply where they say, and the ramps board is probably going to get moved. I'm going to separate the power supply probably off to the left-hand side and then run the wiring to that. So that's the only way to keep things neat. So that's probably what's going to happen. When we get to the wiring in the next video, then we'll look at further options. So we're going to move on from here. To mount the proximity sensors, I decided to go ahead and use the stock wood mounts. These proximity sensors will come with 2 lock washers, which they're star lock washers. You're not going to need those. Just take those off. And I put 2 nuts on the 2 nuts back on there, and then ran the tie wrap between the 2 nuts, and you can still adjust it just by screwing it in like that. This isn't where this is supposed to be at this point. I just did this so you can see my intent on mounting these. The x-axis and the z-axis are going to be mounted in the same fashion using the existing wood mount. There's a big question on these proximity sensors. If you look at the documentation, it tells you they run at 6 volts to 36 volts. There's a problem in that the input voltage needed back into the ramps is 5 volts. So you say to yourself, well, I need to put 6 at this to run it. How am I going to run this at 5 to put that back into that board without burning it up? Because if you run this at 12 and you don't put a resistor on it or run it at 5 volts, you will burn the board up. And my answer to your question is they will run at 5. And you ask me, how do I know that? Because I run them on my CNC mill, these same exact sensors, at 5 volts. And they will work at 5 volts. They will work, period. There's many forums, and some guys say they work, some say they don't. They work at 5 volts. It will power them, and they will work. And I'm a testament to that because I've done that. So if you don't want to use a resistor on the voltage input to this, then you have either 2 other choices. You can either purchase a separate 5 volt power supply, which is the easiest way. You can use the resistor. There's plenty of charts out there that'll tell you which one to use. I'll post the number once we get this up and ready to go, if you'd like. And the third one is to use a power supply such as a PC power supply that's been converted to a power supply, like a hobby benchtop power supply, which I have one, which I have done. They're not that difficult to convert. You may not want to go through all that. Most people want to get these things up and running like right away, so those are your options with that. So we're going to move on to the next step, and that is going to be the hot end. We'll go from there. To assemble the hot end, there's a host of parts that are going to come in a single bag. This is the E3D V6 hot end. Comes with a Teflon tube, the heat break, the sensor, I believe. There's a cover for the end, a fan, the extruder end, where the heater, sensor, and everything mount, bag of screws, an extension cable, and the heat element. Again, the instructions to assemble all of these parts are in a hyperlink within the manual itself. So you download the manual and then you go to the hyperlink where it'll direct you to go to that particular section, and then it'll open it up. Since I chose the Titan extruder, then when I get ready to assemble that, then I go to the hyperlink for the Titan extruder. If you chose the E3D V6 Lite, then you hit the hyperlink for that, and it will tell you or take you to those instructions. There's not a reason for me to really go in depth. We're going to assemble this, then talk about it. There's so many guys out there and gals that have already done these videos. They're, are a lot better than I am, so if you want to see a step-by-step instructional video, I recommend, you go to some of those sites. There's a guy, I think his name is Thomas Sanladerer. He's in, I think, Czech or something like that. And he's really good, and he takes you step by step. I'll post a link to his website, and he takes you step by step in assembling the Titan, this hot end, and the whole works. His site is really good. So we're going to get this assembled, show you what it looks like. We'll talk about it. I don't think there's going to be any problems, but I'll point out anything that I see, and we'll be right back. This is a little bit out of sequence. I saved the hot end for last. This is the assembly of that. Doesn't take that long. Probably took me less than 20 minutes to assemble this. The only real thing you need to look out for is make sure that that fan, the frame of it, faces forward, and that the wire is facing one of these corners, not in between when you orient this. And that's for routing purposes, so that you can, you see what that looks like there. Other than that, if it was up top here, you have to come down and around, and you don't want to do that. That is the harness for extending back to the ramps. Also, I forgot to note in my initial video, I don't think I did, but I plan on installing this BL Touch also. That's another upgrade. If you order this, make sure that you order the wiring harness with it. It's a separate piece because this doesn't come with it. So remember, make sure to order the harness if you order this BL Touch. Since I am going Bowden with this, or at least at this point, make sure that you order, if you get the Titan extruder, which I did, that you order the adapter that needs to accompany this, or you won't be able to mount the extruder to this. So that about wraps it up for this portion. Next portion may be out of sequence with the manual itself. I'm going to start looking at wire management. The ramps is probably going to get moved, and the power supply is going to get separated off of that. So I'm going to have to come up with a mounting option for that. Most likely the power supply will sit over this side. I'll run the wiring over to the ramps. I think it's going to be easier that way. It gives me more flexibility for wiring purposes. So that about closes out this video. Once again, please like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching.